Hey, brand builders, ready to take your brand to the next level? I'm Dana Ammons, and welcome to the Brand Blueprint.
Welcome back to the Brand Blueprint. I'm your host, Dana Ammons, and today I am thrilled and excited to be joined by Kaushik Boruah, business head at CPG and hospitality at LatentView Analytics. Now, I said a lot there, and Kaushik is going to definitely share what he does in his day-to-day, but let's talk a little bit about his expertise. Kaushik is an AI expert and has led AI-driven product development, consumer segmentation, and go-to-market optimization for top consumer brands. And that's obviously why we have him on the show today. In this sales and distribution capsule, we're going to explore how data and analytics inform every stage of bringing products to the market, from R&D to retail channels. And Kaushik is going to help us demystify that. So Kaushik, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Dana. It's a pleasure, and really like that infectious energy that you bring in across the podcast that I've watched. Really excited to be a part of this today.
No, I appreciate that. And I'm really happy to have you on the show. And trust me, my energy is up because the conversation that we are about to have today is just so exciting and filled with a lot of knowledge. So I'm really excited for our listeners. But before we jump into the meat and potatoes of the interview, we do like to have a quick conversation and get to know you moment first, which we call our rapid fire segment. So are you ready to jump into the rapid fire segment?
Absolutely.
All right, Kaushik. Now, look, one of the things I always start with, and especially am interested in, is the routines and habits of highly successful people. And so the first question for you today is coffee, tea, or other?
You know what? I'm from a place where you get tea, but I prefer coffee. I have to admit that.
That is true. So being from a country that predominantly uses tea as their morning occasion, really full day occasion, right? You drink tea throughout the day. What kind of coffee ritual do you have? Are you what I would call a high-end coffee snob where you have to have the right bean and the right grind and you got a ritual putting it together? Or are you just, hey, I can go get it at the gas station. I just need my coffee.
I just need my coffee.
I love that. Love it. Yeah. Now, in the spirit of, again, work habits and routines, are you a morning person or a night owl?
I am a night owl. Yeah,
now,
my team hates that, but yeah, that is what it is.
Look, and it could definitely be challenging, especially when you are across multiple time zones, right? I know that is a bit of a challenge with time zones and late night people with like myself, who definitely get a lot of work done after hours. So talking about that, and let's take it a little step further into kind of what you do on your day-to-day as an expert in terms of your analytics and marketing work. Tell me, what is one of the key platforms or applications that you currently use on a day-to-day basis that you find indispensable?
Okay, so this is more from a professional standpoint. I love keeping a tab and keeping notes of all the things that I've been learning. And this is the age of AI, and every day we are bombarded with a bunch of new things that are happening. You sleep a day, and then the next day you wake up, you get to know something new has been invented. And I like to keep a track of all of this. And I use this application called Notion quite a bit to maintain all of that at one place, and so that I can also revisit time to time on that. So that's an application which I almost start my day with in some cases. Apart from that, there are some other websites which kind of give me that daily dose of data science or AI and the advancements that's happening. And it's pretty interesting times that we are living in. So I love to keep myself up to date on that.
Yeah, tell me about it. You're right. Really interesting times, and frankly, sometimes challenging times to find the right information source to stay up to speed. So, all right. So you are a global guy who's traveled the world, been many places, obviously engaged in multiple cultures. Tell me one favorite place to visit. If you've got a week off, you can go anywhere in the world. Where would you go?
At the moment, I would probably go back to my home ground.
Go home.
Yes, it's a place that I miss. I mean, of course, because of professional commitments, you got to be in certain places. But at the end of the day, home is the place where you want to return and maybe maximize your time.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that would be the place where I would want to.
Now, tell us a little bit about home. Where are you at right now? Because our viewers obviously are all over the globe. Is where are you located in currently, and then where do you call home?
That's right. So I come from this small town in a state called Assam in India. I am right now in the US, in New Jersey. It's a long way. It's almost, as we call it back home in India, it's almost crossing 7 seas and getting onto the other side. It is an exciting place to be in. But that said, I think your earlier question was, where would you find that solace and maybe that comfort, and probably a place where you'd want to stay longer? That is obviously a place where you've grown up with certain things that has happened around you. You'd want to do some of those things back again, right? So the childhood and stuff like that. So those are the things which have shaped me as a person right now. So love to sort of
stay connected.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, I would tell you, logically, you would believe that most people have that kind of desire to go back home or go back where they're from, right? Especially as an adult, you work a lot of hours, you start having kids, a family, you want to get back and reconnect. I actually am probably one of the few people who don't have as strong of a pull. I grew up in a small town in the middle of the country in Omaha, Nebraska. Not that dynamic of a place to be. From the time I was probably 10 forward, I was constantly thinking, like, as soon as I get old enough, I'm out of here, right? Like, I am out of this town. And I'm telling you, Kaushik, when I got out of there, I was gone. Like, I was out and did not look back. I have relocated 15 times in the last almost 30 years. Now, most of those reloads, almost all of those reloads were driven by work and promotions. But that being said, none of them ever took me back to Omaha, Nebraska, right? So I always laugh because I tell people I envy that ability to have grown up in a place or a city that you really still not only like to go back to, but you go back to often. And in my instance, we go back, kind of every once in a while. I still have a lot of family there. But I also have a lot of family who, similar to me, have left and dispersed all across the country. So I appreciate kind of having those roots, but I envy it when I hear people like yourself who are like, man, I love to go back home, because that's technically not one of the things you'll hear me say, right? When I was married, it was always difficult because every time the holidays would come around, I would go, hey, you think you want to go to Omaha, maybe?
And that's the exact reason why I would want to go back, right? Because it's a scarcity, and it's probably the challenge of being there, almost, when you think about it. Right? I think the fact that you cannot just think about being in that place when you're tired, that's the reason I want to be there, right? So it is what it is.
Now tell me this, and then we'll kind of move on to the main interview segment. Given your international kind of span of control and kind of where you've been, et cetera, if you weren't in the current industry that you're in now, working with AI frameworks, marketing, et cetera, what would you be doing?
This is an interesting one because, since the time I've sort of joined the workforce, I've always loved what I do. That said, what I also like to do, as I'm noticing, is that sharing some of these insights, these stuff that I almost read on a day-to-day basis. I've got a whole repository of really nice insights, some facts, which a lot of people don't know about possibly, and love to educate them on why something of that kind might have happened. And this is something that sort of leads to a professional like teaching, probably. Love to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and to your point, you probably do that on your daily job in many ways, right? And you're going to do that right now on the show. So with that, let's get ready to transition into the main portion of the interview. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
All right, great. Well, look, I want to start where we just left off. You clearly are somebody who likes to educate and teach, and I know you've got a ton of interesting facts and trends and data to share, but I want to quickly just share with our audience, especially our younger audience, those out there in the age range of 16, 17, 18, maybe debating about career paths and college and what do I want to do as next steps. And they're watching the show right now and they're going, man, this Kaushik seems really cool. I wonder how he got to where he is. Tell them what was your journey, Kaushik? How did you get to the table, at LatentView, leading a whole business at that company? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah. So actually, I did my engineering and my master's from a couple of premier colleges in India. And at that point in time, analytics was still a buzzword. I used to hear terms like data science and BI and Tableau, etc., for visualization and all of this. And some of my batchmates also were sort of trying to get into this sort of an industry. I was fortunate to be a part of this company called LatentView Analytics, who took a bet on me, had got into there. And I got to know that what they do is they solve business problems for leading technology as well as consumer brands, some of the brands who we admire and we use them on a daily basis. I still remember one of the first engagements that we had done was for a leading snack and beverage manufacturer, probably the best in the world. And we've done some basic analysis on marketing, on supply chain, and one thing led to the other. I just got into the groove, and I had this habit about solving problems. Because at the end of the day, as consultants, what you got to do is solve fuzzy problems, which the clients probably are not able to solve on their own, and they seek partners like us to be able to do that. So this habit of being able to identify problems and solving them for the clients sort of almost became my passion across the CPG industry. I was associated with that since the start. And because of the growth within the company, because we were expanding into multiple, I would say, groups within the CPG industry also. So, for example, we were moving from food and beverages to beauty and personal care, household and laundry, all of those. And that kind of increased my portfolio of the kind of problems that I was solving across these clients. And I took over at one point in time, we went public, and then I also took over the role of the entire practice. Right now, that's what I'm doing. I'm heading the CPG practice for the organization. It's a fresh assignment that I have in the US. Really excited to be sort of doing certain newer problems that the companies are trying to solve for. Of course, using AI and generative AI to be precise now. So I think if I were to look back and see the things that had made me successful, one was obviously this knack of problem solving, being able to sort of understand the business domain from a client standpoint, right? So that's very important because you know what, in this space, technology is something that a lot of people are able to solve, but it's important for us to translate that technology into the specific business problem that they're trying to solve for, right? So that is where I've probably been able to do a decent job, and here am I talking to you today.
No, I love that. And I wanted, thank you for sharing that, because I think it's always important to be mindful of the fact that people are watching you and can be inspired by your journey as well, not just from a founder standpoint in terms of using some of your practical knowledge to help their brands, but frankly, just in evaluating, hey, I have this skill set or I have this passion. And I think one of the things that you said there that I love is you developed this passion and were able to really align the role with your ability to solve problems. And so I want to talk about that aspect of the job and the way you use data and analytics to do just that, to really tease out consumer challenges and then prioritize solutions for those challenges. So walk the audience through just a quick example of, if I was a brand owner or a company and I was sitting down to work with LatentView, how would you work with me to use data to kind of help me solve some of my challenges or problems?
Got it. Okay. So what we do is we solve business problems for these leading consumer brands using analytics and some of the sources that they would have. At the moment, we are strategic partners to 4 out of the top 10 CPG companies. And what we do for them is solve problems across various functional areas. So when you think about the CPG value chain, it starts off with identifying what do you even need to create in the first place. So think about creating a new kind of a moisturizer or a new kind of face cream, right? So what do you even create? So that's all around innovation and R&D. The second thing is then from there it moves into where do you procure this raw material from? How much do you manufacture? You plan that entire inventory. You think about shipping it to the stores. So logistics comes into play. So that entire gamut of things is supply chain. Then from there you think about what kind of marketing strategy would you have, right? Media planning, and you think about creating a brand of yourself, because almost everyone aspires to have a brand like Coke or the Nikes of the world. So that's all around branding, marketing, media planning, etc. And lastly, it is around retail execution through getting better pricing, better promotion, better let's say pack sizes, which appeal to the consumer, right? So across these four functional areas, what we have done is we have created these accelerators because of us solving similar problems across a multitude of clients. We've created certain accelerators which we sort of bring to the table for our clients, help them to solve certain problems which have been solved in the past uh, in a much more effective way, and probably give them more value out of doing so. So
I love that. Now, you guys are working, I'm assuming, with smaller or medium-sized or larger companies, and our audience is mostly comprised of founders who are either in the startup mode or in some case even pre-revenue, et cetera. What, based on those four key areas that you guys have identified, for our founder audience, Kaushik, what would you advise them in terms of one of those four? What's one of the most important key areas? Would you say they're all equal to focus on? Where would you start if you're a smaller brand, a smaller founder with less resources?
I think for founders, especially in today's world, most of them would have their own D2C presence, direct consumer presence, and in that case, because there's another major trend of having so the entire operations, marketing, and some of these elements outsourced to agencies who can get it done, right? So, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to what kind of product are you trying to sort of sell in the market, which sort of brings me the question on what are you trying to solve for a consumer.
Wow, that was a really important point. Can we hear that again?
But at the end of the day, it all boils down to what kind of product are you trying to sort of sell in the market, which sort of brings me the question on what are you trying to solve for a consumer. A typical framework that we use for that is, in the past we used to call it jobs to be done. There are other frameworks that we use nowadays when it comes to solving this, but essentially if you think about this jobs to be done framework, it sort of tells you what are you trying to solve for in the life of a consumer,
in the life of the consumer. Exactly.
Right. And if you're able to figure that out well, it could be, let's say you're trying to solve the cleaning messiness when you sort of try and get your laundry done. Or it can be around your dishes, it can be around, let's say, applying something on your face. But if you're getting that right, after going through multiple consumer reviews, after going through different type of media channels, different type of social media chatter that's going around, if you're getting that positioning really right, then I think some aspects of where to create and who can create, those are things that are already taken care of in some cases, because there are third party players who sort of help you to accelerate that anyways.
Yeah.
Other thing that all of these smaller or emerging brand founders can look at is how can you now build a better brand for yourself.
Right.
Because there are two things. One is the product and the other is distribution. Now, for distribution, you essentially have to basically put yourself out there across all media formats, across all channels, where the consumer is almost spending half the time today, right? And it has become really easy compared to what it was probably a few decades back. Because earlier, when you think about a P&G or a Unilever, they essentially had two really strong powers, which was almost impossible to fight against. One was the whole relationship with the retailers, the
Yep.
Walmarts of the world, because you could
Yep.
only sell to that, and these guys had a pretty strong relationship there. And the other was their whole marketing ability, because your marketing as a channel was limited to what we call as above the line. Basically, you had your
Yep.
print, you had TV, and you had certain channels only. But today that has completely changed. I mean, you can easily
Completely.
market your product in across any social media channels where the
Yep.
consumers are, and you can in
Yep.
fact effectively track that.
Yep.
And the other thing is you don't need a Walmart only strategy, right? You can go out there and then look at any uh,
Correct.
your own website, or you
Yep.
can go about some of the e-commerce marketplaces as well.
No, it's a great point, and you make a really, really important point that I think I want the audience to make sure they recognize. And I agree with you. When I was at P&G and at Pepsi and at Colgate, and probably at C. Johnson as well, I didn't deal with it as much there. But you're right. One of the things that P&G does extremely well, even within its competitive set, is leveraging not just their considerable marketing spend, but they also, under that marketing arm, leverage considerable data to really understand, right, and pinpoint exactly who their consumer is and exactly how to get to their consumer along that purchase journey. And I think you made a great point. Jobs to be done, still a phrase I use coming back from my P&G days, right? And a lot of times I think founders kind of lose sight of the fact that they should be focusing on the jobs to be done from a consumer perspective, not necessarily from a marketing or innovation perspective. Hey, I got this new product and it's going to do this job. No, if the consumer's not asking for that job to be done, then they're likely going to buy into that product. Absolutely. So Kaushik, tell us a little bit about like how you work with brands to use data to uncover those types of challenges where, because I know you get it, right? Brands come in and they've got all this enthusiasm for this new innovation and they're just convinced, right? This is going to work, et cetera. And then you guys run the numbers and look at the analytics and you come back and go, hey guys, consumers not feeling that. Consumers not recognizing that as a job to be done. Can you give us an example or talk about a time where you and your team were able to use data to convincingly demonstrate to a brand that their product or innovation was not on target with what the consumer was actually looking for?
Absolutely. So on that, let me share a framework that we typically use, because jobs to be done is obviously you understand what the consumer need is, but a framework that we use today quite often is desirability, viability, and feasibility.
Desirability, viability, and feasibility.
Feasibility, yes.
Yeah.
So the desirability aspect, as it says, is what do the consumer desire today, right? It kind of boils down to the need of the consumer, taking from what we have learned in jobs to be done. But from there, the second aspect is about viability, which is around we can definitely have this, but is it financially and strategically worth doing?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Will it even make money for us?
Yep.
Right. So that's important for us to sort of evaluate. And the third thing is feasibility, which is can we even deliver it with the limited set of technology, talent, and time that we have, right? And that is a simple framework that the founders can use to sort of not go after fancy objects out there and be realistic about what's possible given their limited resources and what the consumer needs as well.
Whoa, we need to hear that one more time.
But from there, the second aspect is about viability, which is around we can definitely have this, but is it financially and strategically worth doing?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Will it even make money for us?
Yep.
Right. So that's important for us to sort of evaluate. And the third thing is feasibility, which is can we even deliver it with the limited set of technology, talent, and time that we have, right? And that is a simple framework that the founders can use to sort of not go after fancy objects out there and be realistic about what's possible given their limited resources and what the consumer needs as well, right? So it's a simple framework. I can talk about what kind of sources exist to sort of tackle this, but I thought a framework like that could be helpful for them.
Oh, definitely helpful for them. And we will be sharing some of these key concepts as part of the show notes and the follow-up. So for our viewers, make sure you go out to www.thebrandblueprint.biz, not .com, because we're about that biz, and we'll have Kaushik's advice there. Now, let's take that one step further and talk about some of the common sources that founders can use in that framework to identify some of those key needs.
Absolutely. So when it comes to desirability, what we need to basically remember is that we got to follow the consumer. So the consumer today is on all kind of digital channels.
Mm-hmm.
Think of a digital channel that exists today. The consumer,
they're on it,
right?
Right. People are still on X. I can't believe it, but people still out there on X, right? Yeah. They're on every platform.
And if you think about technology as a segment, so there are different, basically tribes or segments or different terms we use for that. Different companies call it in a different way in terms of segmenting various people, demographic. But there is this segment about tech and tech enthusiasts, let's call it that way, right? These tech enthusiasts, you can almost think of it as guaranteed that they would be on X, just to take as an example, because it's an X where you get to see what new innovation, somebody just posts a quick little insight about it, somebody does a quick little demo about it, and then there are people who sort of comments on it, and it's a free platform, and people love that. So that's a if you're targeting something of that kind, right? If you're targeting, let's say, gamers, for example, I know Mars recently launched the chewing gum for gamers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So gamers would play games and they would essentially have this. Now, for that kind of a persona, you got to go after certain places where these personas exist. Like it could be Twitch, it could be maybe YouTube streaming or similar channels like that. Now, what we need to do as a manufacturing company is that either we internally have built a mechanism to scrape all of that data, all that chatter that's going around, or maybe partner with some third-party agencies or tools out there which help you source that data, right? So there are social listening tools out there, like Sysomos, like Meltwater, like a bunch of them today, where you can simply insert specific timestamps, and you can specify the category that you're looking to sort of understand. You can specify the market. You can specify certain keywords that you are going after.
Wow.
And then pull up all that's happened in that particular space in a specific timeline. And you typically look for about 1 to 2 years, because going beyond that would simply not make sense, because
not relevant.
The consumers have moved on, right? So so that's a sweet sort of a time frame. And what you can do post that is do a quick analysis, and it could even be a small sort of word cloud of sort, to understand what are some of the pain points and the keywords that consumers are talking in that space, right? So let's take an example. If you think about personal care or face care, to be specific, in there, somebody wants to create a new product. Maybe they have a background in there and they are aware of certain insights around that category. If they would have done the similar exercise, they would have gone to an Instagram or similar platforms, and they would have extracted this data. They would have identified that there are terminologies like non-comedogenic that they would find in there, right? Which is just a fancy way of saying that your pores don't get clogged.
Yeah.
Right. There could be other antimicrobial, or it could be fragrance-free. It could be some similar terminologies which he or she might even be aware for the first time, right? And consumers are seeking those. Consumers are way more informed than they were maybe a few years back. So in some cases, they even go after specific chemical compounds, right? They go after, for example, they would want to know hyaluronic acid. Is it there in a
Is it an active ingredient? What the percentage is? Exactly.
So all of that can be understood, and it goes back to the desirability piece that I was referring to. You could understand that in a pretty quick manner, right? With that, but then from there, what I had come to was the viability section, which is where you want to do some quick back of the envelope of math around it, try and understand how much would it even cost you to source this. Are there only 2 or 3 suppliers who could possibly provide me this, right? So then, is it even financially viable for me?
Yep.
That's the question you need to ask, right? And you need to almost seize that opportunity. Am I just getting excited by looking at this trend, which probably will be sought for by only a group of people out there? Or is this a major trend that I'm probably looking at, right? So that kind of a thing needs to be done in a viability space. And then the last one is around feasibility, which is where you know your own strengths, you know your own resources, the amount of time that you have at your hand to be able to create a product till it reaches the shelves, and you accordingly sort of keep that financial capital and everything to yourselves to sort of take that decision.
No, I appreciate you providing our audience with that framework. And Kaushik, I have a follow-up question, I guess, in the spirit of the founder has taken the journey now and started to, employ different tactics like social listening. They've identified some key jobs to be done that they really are confident that their brand can deliver on, right? Now they've actually embarked on the actual campaign. They're running ads in multiple channels, like you said. They now need to understand how the actual campaign is performing and then take that data to either adjust the campaign and or continue to scale the campaign. So can you talk a little bit about some of the key measures or KPIs that you use on the back end to actually indicate or identify success of a particular effort or campaign?
Yeah, so with regards to campaign, again, this will differ for brands who only are digital native brands versus brands who also have an offline presence, right? So in this case, for digital native brands, it's comparatively easy than the ones who sort of sell this offline, because in there, you kind of don't have that coherent consumer who looks at maybe a retail store and then goes back and buys online, or does vice versa, right? So it's called showrooming, for example. So, but for my answer, I'll kind of assume that this is for brands that are digital native who have launched their own websites and probably are selling through these leading marketplaces. So for that, a typical way to look at this would be whether a product has been successful or not is to look at the trial versus repeat rate.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is how many people in the target audience that we have identified have tried our product at least once.
Yep.
Versus how many of those guys came back to purchase it, right?
Yep.
That sort of gives you a quick measure of whether my campaigns were effective or not, and whether first of all, my product was successful or not.
Correct.
Right? Because you might run multiple campaigns, but then if your product isn't solving, goes back to the job to be done, then you'll basically, have a huge hole in your pocket, right? So that's what would happen. So, but what you'd want to know is, are there specific elements in my product which I could improve over time? And one quick thing that I can see is through this particular metric that we typically advise. The other thing is, of course, the customer acquisition cost, which is something that a lot of brands needs to look at when it comes to this. Because if you're a digital native company, you might get excited because you might feel that your consumer is present across all channels. But the reality is that there are only a few channels who would probably give you the maximum
correct
return for your buck, right? So that is something that you got to quickly understand, and then put your eggs in those areas which could generate your maximum return.
Now, do you find, Kaushik, that the Measures have changed dramatically from years ago when you first started in the industry. I know, like you and I are veterans, and buy and repeat rates are pretty, standard penetration rates, et cetera. Are there any new areas of measurement or KPIs that you would advise our audience to maybe pay attention to or also consider that may not have been part of the the standard suite of measures that we've all kind of been taught we need to follow?
Well, I would not think so. It would only change from a like for example, some of the velocity and distribution related metrics still stands true today, right? I mean, at the end of the day, whatever you launch, it has to fly off the shelf, and that's where anything around velocity and total distribution points, stuff like that, will become critical for us. And the core of the business hasn't changed.
Yeah.
But what has changed is because you have these, let's say, explosion of media channels that have come in, and explosion of
content aggregators.
Retail outlets where you could potentially sell this, right? So this is whole evolving space of retail media. And over there, you are at the end of the day, again, trying to identify which channels are more suited for you, right? Both in terms of putting your product on those platforms, retail platforms, as well as also deciding whether it makes sense for me to bid on specific keywords on those platforms, right? So for example, if you have something which is, if you have a new personal care line, does it make sense for you to maybe spend a few dollars to buy a keyword on Sephora, for example?
Right.
So stuff like that. That's a choice or a decision that you need to make after you've already analyzed where do you fit in with regards to that category from a competitive set standpoint. What kind of benefits do you offer that probably the other immediate competition doesn't offer right now? Identify, do a brand space, benefit space analysis, where the benefits that you offer versus what the consumers desire, if there is an alignment and you don't see any other players playing in that, that's a sweet spot, right? So we typically do analysis like that to be able to identify white spaces and then go big on that. Because at the moment, with whatever is happening, if it is slightly easier for you to put up a product out there, it is easier for others also. So we always need to sort of, there is a time aspect to all of these, right? So because you'd only get that arbitrage for some time period, and you'll quickly see others coming into that game quickly, because they also have access to those modern tools. So for that, we got to act pretty quickly. Once we identify that, we need to be able to measure our effectiveness, our returns on those channels, and then quickly cater to that.
I love that. So one of the questions I want to ask following that up before we wrap up, and I think it's an important bit of direction to give our audience, which is we've got all this data, right? And you've used it now to help shape the product benefits and features. We've used it to shape media and marketing and targeting. And we've used it, as we just discussed, to really understand and post-analyze a lot of the executions that we have created. And you've got all this data, you've got all of these different, uses. And as a founder, right, many of the founders that and I know don't have these inherent skill sets to understand how to deploy and develop at all these different junctures. How would you advise a founder who is starting from one employee, themselves, me, myself, and I, if I call it 3 people, right? How do I go from me, myself, and I to the first employee that I actually, assign data and analysis work to, third-party company or consultant, what have you? Like, talk a little bit about that, Kaushik, because I would tell you, in my experience, many founders will deprioritize that particular hire and that service, right? Whether it's going out to a third-party service and buying the data and analyzing it themselves or paying somebody to do it. I do think that in many cases, it is deprioritized, especially early in a founder's journey. Can you talk about that a little bit and just give the audience your opinion on when they should start thinking about, outsourcing or bringing somebody in for specific data and analytics help?
I think the moment a founder finds their job to be done, pinpoints that, and has an MVP creator of it, all they should think of is how to sell this.
Yep.
Right. That's the number one job. There's nothing else outside of that. Now, everything else which sort of augments this decision making, because there are certain decisions that the founder has to make on which sort of channel partners to, which sort of retail partners to go with, where should they market, stuff like that. Now, for that, at the beginning, I think they can rely on at least somebody in-house, at least one individual who can sort of do this basic analysis, some research work. And trust me, some of this has become very easy, compared to what it was maybe 5 years back, largely because of the amount of knowledge that's there already on some of these chatbots that we use, right, on a day-to-day basis. So think of them as assistants. The year is not, we will probably be living in an age where you'd have, instead of this person working for the founder, you'd have probably agents working for the founder.
Yep. Yeah.
But
do you feel like that? Do you feel like that future is rapidly approaching? Do you think the adoption is going to be there by the consumer? Because you're working for a company that is clearly making a lot of money and doing a lot of things in that space, right? And I think all of us as consultants and as third-party, service providers are watching this thing. So talk a little bit before you end the call about what you prognosticate, right? Like AI will actually do to this particular part of the brand formula.
Trust me, there's not a single conversation without us discussing this, either with the client or one of my internal teammates. But I'll just give you a couple of nuggets on where we are seeing the industry headed, and some of the work that we are also doing in this space. So a short answer to what you asked is 100% that is the future, and that's probably happening maybe in a couple of years' time. Some large brands are already taking baby steps towards it.
To do it.
Yeah, so they are taking certain what we would call as workflows. Think about specific steps which are sort of routine in nature. Those are the first ones to get eliminated.
To get automated.
Yeah. And then there are other aspects which require a little bit of cognitive intelligence, which is where these assistants that you have around all of us are also getting smarter, right? So if you think about this reasoning-based answering capability, that itself is heading towards more of a cognitive intelligence compared to the earlier versions of ChatGPT, which was more fact-based, right? You can only imagine what the future could hold in that kind of circumstances. But at the moment, what we are trying to build for certain brands is that are there some non-value adding, as we are trying to term it, for the founders or for some of the functional teams that we work with, which can be sort of quickly taken over and probably be solved in a faster, more effective way, cheaper way, because that's what the companies are looking for, right? So we are trying to identify those areas and are already trying to implement some basic algorithms, some agents, some workflows that we have identified, and we are creating our own ways of solving that fairly quickly.
I love that. It is a wild, wild world right now with all of the swirl and information around the eventual, accessibility to bots and to eventually agents that will kind of, not just go out and do routine tasks, but actually iterate and start to perfect and eventually do a lot of the work that we're used to, frankly, getting, from real humans. So I think that is going to be a trend to watch. Listen, Kaushik, I really appreciate, man, every bit of knowledge that you dropped on the show today. I would love to have you back in the future to continue to update us on these everyday changing trends. I feel like I could bring you back every week, really. Like every time I turn on the TV, there's something in AI that I'm like, I thought I was up to speed. Like I thought I was good. I thought I was an expert, and I'm not the expert. There's people like you that are working in it every single minute of catching these updates that I'm not catching. Matter of fact, it's funny that you said. I was talking to somebody else just I think a day or two ago, and I was asking, how do you stay up to speed on all of the trends in AI? And his answer was, I've created a bot that actually runs daily and looks for new news on AI. In AI, and then it provides me. And then I said, so do you have anything to share? He said, well, unfortunately, I don't have the time to read it. Right. So,
Yeah.
so it's one of the things I love about AI, and I like to remind people about, like, AI is definitely a great tool, but it is just that it's still a tool. And you still need somebody with a good degree of intelligence and common sense to actually work the tool. So, right, if you're not using common sense to work the tool, you probably don't think the tool's that great. And I do hear people saying, like, what's the big deal with AI? It's not that great. And I immediately think to myself, they clearly don't know how to use the tool. Right. So educate yourself, people. Make sure you go back and listen to this interview, which will be a really great addition to whatever you are using to educate yourself from an expert like Kaushik. So before we go, Kaushik, I want to basically give our audience an opportunity to connect with you outside of the show if they're interested in working with LatentView. So can you give your specific socials and information that people can use to reach out to you outside of the show?
Absolutely. So I'm quite active on LinkedIn. So if at all anybody wants to
we love LinkedIn. Yeah.
Please do so over there. I'm generally responsive over there, but otherwise I can share my email address as well of LatentView, which then it would be great if you could sort of put that on.
We'll definitely be sharing. And what kind of businesses or founders would you encourage to reach out to LatentView if they have needs?
Yeah, so we typically work with large CPG brands. But that said, if there's a specific problem which is quite exciting for us to be able to solve for and help out an emerging brand, we would be happy to do so as well, right? And then these are typically in those 4 functional areas that I spoke about, either in the innovation or R&D space, or supply chain, or marketing, or our revenue growth management, as we call it, which sort of caters to pricing, promotion, retail execution, etc.
Thank you for that. We really, really appreciate you again coming on the show. I can't tell you how much I am excited to get this episode out there. For those of you watching this episode, don't forget, we have bonus information, materials, and links on our website. We also have Kaushik's profile there, so you'll be able to learn more about him, connect with him. As he mentioned, he's out on LinkedIn. We're out on LinkedIn. If you're missing the party, you better get out there and jump in LinkedIn and start networking. Remember, guys, it's a business platform, not a personal. So leave the baby pictures and the wedding announcements on Facebook and Instagram, but definitely jump out there and network from a business perspective with myself, with Kaushik, and with many of the guests that we have on the show. Again, can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your expertise. And once again, I'd like to invite our viewers to subscribe, share, like. If you don't do one of those things, I tend to think you might be a hater. I know you don't want to be a hater. So make sure you at least go out and like and share this episode. And definitely come back and follow us in the future for more exciting content. And with that, I'd like to sign off again. Your host, Dana Ammons, with our great guest, Kaushik. And we are going to really, really look forward to bringing you another great episode in the future. Thanks again for joining the Brand Blueprint, and have a great one.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Brand Blueprint journey. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms to stay updated. Watch the full episodes on our YouTube channel for an in-depth experience. Don't forget to subscribe to our website at thebrandblueprint.biz for exclusive content and materials. We're everywhere you need us to be.